Astrology 101, Week 3, Celestial Bodies, created, directed, and produced by Reverend Dr. Dikki Jo Mullen. In this video, Dr. Mullen will explore celestial bodies, including the Sun, Moon, and planets, generators of cosmic energy.
Hi, astrology students. This is Dikki Jo again, and we are at week 3 of Astrology 101 Introduction. Over the last 2 weeks, we've done the signs of the zodiac, all 12 of them, and the 12 houses. And now we're going to look at the sun and the moon and the planets. Sometimes the sun and the moon are lumped together with planets, but the real technical term is luminaries. Your mythology studies will help you a lot here because mythology was really a way the ancients described the influences of the cosmos. The planets and the sun and moon are readers. I like to use the analogy of those metallic Christmas trees. If you can think back, they're now vintage. They were popular, I think, in the 60s and 70s, where there would be a silver tree and then a light shining on it, and then a spinning wheel of different colors. The light was the same, but the colors of the wheel changed the energy or appearance of the tree. And that's what it's like as the sun from our perspective, the moon and planet, the greater circle of the sun through the signs of the zodiac. And that creates the structure of the chart. The sun is symbolized by a circle with a dot on it in the middle, circle with a dot, and the dot shows divine consciousness becoming an individual ego. The image suggests a nucleus within an atom, potential, willpower, and the quality of the individuality are all described. The sign, it's actually the Earth's path going around the sun, but from our perspective, we seem to be moving through the signs of the zodiac. It shows where you shine, ego, identity. It's the single most important point in the chart. The symbol for the moon is a semicircle. In its pure form, it shows receptivity. It acts as a chalice or cup, holding emotions and feelings. The two halves of the semicircle show the difference between the inner and the outer selves. This dichotomy between the conscious and subconscious sides of the psyche are illustrated by the familiar crescent moon. The moon is emotion, personality, heritage, early family influence. The moon rules birth through age 7, that part of the life. And if you're doing horoscopes for small children, the moon will be all that you'll see. The influence of the sun sign doesn't fully manifest until about age 21. The planet Mercury doesn't sound as exotic as some of the far out influences that we're meeting up with here in astrological studies and verse. But if you think about mythology, Mercury was the god of travel, information, the messenger, communication. In your birth chart, Mercury rules ages 7 to 14, the most important school years. And Mercury shows what type of mentality you have. If you have a creative or a technical mind, if you're good at languages or something mechanical. Mercury also has a bearing, and cross and semicircle are combined to form the symbol for Mercury. Intellectual energy, the force of active intelligence. The crescent at the top shows high aspirations, and the circle refers to the source of mental energy. There's a cross at the base, and this shows the necessity of the mind being practical enough to function within the confines of earthly material. Mercury shows your skills, basic intellect, and ability to communicate or not. Mental health, mental illness, and aptitudes are all shown by the planet Mercury. Next, we have who might be everybody's favorite planet, the goddess Venus. Think of love, pleasures, money, the fine arts, everything that makes life joyful and more beautiful. Venus begins to take effect 18 to 21 when we're falling in love, maybe with a person, but also with arts, ideals, and interests. Venus is a cross supporting the circle in the glyph. Venus represents all that is cultural, full of love and beautiful. This combination of forms shows pure spirit, inspiring matter to become ever more soft and lovely. In esoteric astrology, Venus is pure, unfettered love. Mars is the god of war, energy, vitality, sports, challenges, get up and go, motivation. The symbol for Mars is the symbol for male. And the Mars years begin in full in the 30s for most people, age 30s on. And this is a reversal of the Venusian emblem, which is the symbol for woman. Warmonger refers to drive and initiative. Here the rod surmounts the circle, and it's a diagonal rod going up, showing both the connective and authoritative energies illustrated. Mars's symbol shows that it inspires new levels of self-expression from the interplay of the spiritual totality and the world of earthly matter. Jupiter is next. Jupiter relates to Zeus, Jupiter, the king of the gods, the largest planet. It's called the greater benefic. The lesser benefic is Venus, and Mars is sometimes called the lesser malefic. More about that in a minute. Jupiter, as the greater benefic, is the most massive of planets. Its symbol is a crescent with a semicircle rising above the cross of matter. Jupiter shows how the soul and psyche can triumph over the confines of Earth. The symbol suggests that the receptive and fluid qualities should be developed to overcome Jupiter's expansion, religion, luck, and happiness. If you're going to be rich and lucky, if you seem to have good fortune, the influence of Jupiter at birth is probably being activated. Jupiter is also the planet of the gambler. Age 48 and beyond, into the 50s or so, that time of life is sometimes called the Jupiter years. Next, we want Saturn. This symbol suggests the reversal of Jupiter's emblems. It looks like an H with a cross on top of it. And this is the celestial heavy in the heavens, the planet of parameters, restriction. It relates to health. Here the cross towers over the semicircle. Jupiter shows how practical needs can be the catalyst to foster imagination. The cross on top indicates the demands of material existences, and it must be met before the consciousness knows the rewards of the Judeo-Christian work ethic, responsibility, maturity, realities, older people, circumstances in the mature or older years of life from the middle 60s on until the end of life are ruled by Saturn. Those are the planets we can see without the aid of a telescope. And up until Uranus was discovered, that was the end of the known universe. And that is as people function on a personal level. The most personal planets are Mars and then Jupiter and Saturn stay a year and a little over 2 years, almost 3 years, respectively, in each sign, and are a little more of a generational influence. But think how the world has changed. Astrology has been with us for at least 5,000 years, more than that. And watching the heavens and the way the planetary forces, the visible planets that we can see, affect the flow of life, the science of astrology slowly developed. But our world has been growing and changing. And in the 1700s, Uranus was discovered. The emblem for Uranus shows 2 semicircles on either side of a cross. Uranus is a termed the awakener among the planets. The two semicircles show recognition of the individual personality, that's the crescent, through unity with the whole, a completed circle. The cross shows connection with others through the vehicle of matter, experiences of earthly incarnation. Uranus is the planet of the expected, the bohemian. Its creative energy is illustrated by the semicircles facing in different directions, yet showing an entire circle. Uranus is originality, science, progress. It has a special tie with astrology, too. When Uranus was discovered in the 1700s, the industrial age began. Think of electricity. Benjamin Franklin with the key and the kite is kind of a famous image. And our world began to move toward today. Uranus stays about 7 years in each birth sign, so it rules whole groups of people. The next planet we want to look at was discovered in the 1800s, and this is the planet Neptune. The circle of spirit has been pierced and divided by the cross of matter. The glyph looks like Neptune's trident, and the cross is the physical body. The pair of crescents show sense impressions, intuition, and heightened by Neptune. The twin crescents show both the astral and physical worlds, united by the force of tangible matter. The broken circle suggests freedom from ego and personal identity. And Neptune is representative of drugs, dreams, inspiration. The science of psychology really began to be developed during the 19th century, the 1800s. Dream interpretation, imagination, the sixth sense. At the time Neptune was discovered, the religion of spiritualism developed, and that developed into the sixth sense, spirituality as we know it today. And the planet Neptune stays in each sign about 14 years. So we are looking at a whole generational group of people here where one can be deceived, or we can deceive ourselves, but also creative inspiration, wild imagination. Neptune, the god of the sea, isn't quite revealed, and Neptune relates to hidden things. Pluto was discovered in 1930 at the beginning of the atomic age. And since 1930, of course, there's been more changes in many ways than in the hundreds and hundreds of years before. Pluto and perfect circle, rising above the semicircle of matter, the cross. Rebirth, redemption, the transformation, renewal, every ending has a new beginning. Pluto, the god of the underworld, reminds us that we're able to alter our destinies. For the crescents show that the cross can take what it chooses from the totality of the whole circle. Pluto has an erratic orbit. It can stay up to an entire generation in a single sign. Ecology and natural resources, pollution, changing the world so that we can continue to live in it. All of those ideas tie in with Pluto, and of course have become been called to our attention since 1930, 90 years ago, when Pluto was discovered. Pluto has a bearing on hope after total annihilation. So it's a powerful influence, but again, it's a whole generational influence. Important, but the planets from Saturn in and then the sun and the moon are the most important ones in reading horoscopes for individuals. The other planets from Uranus out, and there are others, there's Eris, Sedna. As our world is expanding, we're responding more and more to influences that have been there for untold millennia. But once we, as a race, discover them, we're able to respond to them in a major way. Think about how life was different years ago, say in the 1600s, if you're an Outlander fan, 1700s, the world that at that time was just in a completely different place than in the 20th and 21st century. Outlander is such a popular program right now. It's kind of a good analogy for looking at how all of the different celestial influences are changing from time to time. The planet Pluto is just returning to where it was at the time of the American and French revolutions. And so the United States is going through something called a Pluto Return right now. Nobody knows how to read it because it's never occurred before. But the Pluto Return could be very significant for our beloved country, how it returns, whether it returns to where it was when spiritualism was developed in the 1800s, and mediumship, afterlife communication, communicating with other levels of awareness, possible time travel, all of that which used to be just the stuff of dreams may be manifesting in a major way. Uranus returns to its natal place every 84 years, and that often represents the end of this other life for many people. But those who do make it through the Uranus return often make it to the century mark. And it isn't good to predict death. It goes beyond what we should do. It's a very common question. In fact, I just had it with a client who wanted a reading yesterday and wanted to know when a relative was going to pass away. And death can appear as another change. There's a famous story in the spiritual world about a woman who had a prediction that her husband was going to die. So they went out and spent all of their money and had a really, really good time and came home broke and were waiting for him to die. And the buddies on his bowling league called. The bowling league was being dissolved and they had a funeral for it. And that was the death that showed up. So the couple had to live on and get part-time jobs or something. And this is kind of some of the folklore in astrology, but it upsets even if they think they want to know when there's a death. And so that is one thing just to say for those of you who are planning to do professional counseling, just a very good thing to bear in mind. The planets that rule the sun sign and the ascendant are called the ruling planets and the dispositors in the chart. It's very important to know which planets rule each birth sign. The planet Mars rules both Pluto and Aries. The planet Venus rules both Libra. The planet Mercury rules both Gemini and Virgo. The moon rules Cancer, the sun rules Leo, and Jupiter rules both Sagittarius and co-rules Neptune. Saturn is is the ruler of Capricorn. Some say Capricorn is co-ruled by Uranus. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and some sources say there's a co-rulership with Saturn. We're going back to the ancient rulerships before the later planets were discovered. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, but in ancient time, Jupiter as the rulership. And these older rulerships are still significant. In reading a chart, look at the position of the ruling planet of the ascendant and the sun for deeper insights. For example, if you're looking at a birth chart and it has Libra rising, Venus would be said to be the ruler of that chart. So the house position and the sign of Venus will be very significant in understanding that nativity. And then you want to look at the dispositor or ruler of the sun sign. Suppose someone is an Aries with the sun in Aries, but the ruler of Aries is Mars, right? So one would look at Mars for deeper insights, where it falls in the birth chart. And we'll be talking about the aspects too. If someone might be an Aquarian, you would look at the sun sign of Aquarius for the ego, sense of identity, but then at the planet Uranus, as that is the dispositor of the sun. Each of the planets relate and to in a greater degree in a positive or negative way within each of the signs. And there's something called planetary dignities. Each planet is said to be dignified in the sign it rules. For example, if you're looking at a birth chart and Venus is in Taurus, you know that Venus rules Taurus. So it's said to be dignified there. And then it's said to be in its detriment in the sign across from the rulership. That would put Venus in its detriment in Scorpio. And the of each sign, Venus is said to be exalted in Pisces, and it is in its fall in the ruling opposite sign, which would be Virgo. And each of the placements, when you're looking at a basic astrology book, try to learn the dignified ones are easy because that's the ruling planets I just gave you. The detriment means it functions at a disadvantage across. And then the others, the exaltation and the fall, you'll have to work at learning. And there are some variations. Mercury is said to be exalted in the sign of Aquarius, and then it would be in its fall in the sign of Leo, although some sources also give Virgo as both the rulership and the exaltation of Mercury. So with something as ancient as astrology, there are some variations, but you're aware of that. Look at any planet that's rising near the ascendant. That planet will dominate the chart. The rising degrees are, there's some variation, but 5 degrees above to 15 degrees below. The ascendant is an especially powerful place for planetary placements. For example, if someone would have a rising sign of 10 degrees Scorpio, the ascendant there, the rising area would be 5 degrees above, so that would be 5 Scorpio, to 15 degrees below. And that would be, if you add 10 degrees and 15, that would be down to 25 degrees. That area of the chart sort of dominates the way we vibrate, come across, walk around in the world. It's possible to do a very good horoscope reading because the attention span of most people, of course, when it's about ourselves, we're maybe more interested. But if you can keep them interested for an hour, you're doing brilliantly. About 20 minutes to get the really significant part of the chart out would be very good. And about 20 minutes, you can do a reading of the sun, rising sign. I hope you've enjoyed week 3 here, and we'll be back next week for more information. It'll be week 4 of our class and kind of a wrap up of all the work that we've been doing this past week. And I enjoy working with you and care about you very much. See you next week.